G'day everyone, it's Joseph from Coastal Asbestos here, the Gold Coast #1 asbestos removal company. Now today, I want to go through a list of the unluckiest 13 places asbestos was used or where we found it. And I want to try and give you some sort of a little bit obscure examples. Everyone's aware of the sheeting products in buildings, but let's move straight into it. You're not going to believe in pool shells. So back in the day, before asbestos was banned, they used to mix asbestos fibres in with pool shells. So the marble sheen pools, it's a common product. There's still hundreds of thousands of them around in Australia that may test positive for asbestos. So if you're looking at refurbishing your pool, get it tested in an NATA lab. Another place that you're not going to believe asbestos was found or used was in filters. So in World War II, they used to use asbestos in the filters of gas masks. And also it's been used for filtering milk, filtering beer, filtering wine, and probably the most sinister of all, in cigarette filters. It was called a microfiber filter and was used by the Kent Cigarette Company. One of the other things in the house that people are unaware of is in the lino. So asbestos-backed lino is classified as friable under the Act. So it's one thing you definitely don't want to mess with, and it's under everyone's floors. Look, this lino, like all asbestos, if it's in good condition, you can manage it safely. Old hvac ducts. So this is another thing that there's still a lot around. In a lot of commercial buildings, you'll see the big square steel ducts running through that has the heating and ventilation and air conditioning. One of the methods that they used to use was they would have a head unit back here that would heat the air, and because the air would carry through long distances through this ducting, they would literally have like an element that you would find in your oven in line in that duct, and that part of that duct, they would line it with asbestos, and that was usually asbestos insulation board, AIB. That's another friable product, so that's something you never want to mess with. Another place that people will commonly sort of have an interaction with that they weren't sure that was asbestos was, you remember the old ceramic fuses back in the day? I mean, there's still a lot of houses we find with them, and you'd have to like undo the wire and take the wire out. Now those ceramic fuses would often have like a little bit of fabric, asbestos fabric, chrysotile white asbestos in there as a flash guard. And there's still probably millions of those around. While we're on electrical components, the old Bakelite, it was like a brownie sort of colour, had a bit of a fleck through it sometimes, but Bakelite switches, using switches, power points, used to make a lot of old radios on it. It's one of the first sort of early plastics that became on the market, and there's still thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them around. It's quite common to see Bakelite stuff for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and it's illegal to sell asbestos products in Australia, and I don't know why they don't clamp down on it. Another thing that you'll find that has asbestos in it is jewellery. You see some stuff online, and if you see the word tiger's eye, that's commonly some sort of rock that have asbestos vein in it, and when it's polished up, believe it or not, that's what gives it the eye. That sort of the whites of the eye in tiger eye, that's asbestos. So if you see stuff like that, please steer clear from it. Tell your friends. In the rope seal on old ovens. So all you antique enthusiasts out there, people who love pot-belly stoves, that kind of thing. When you open the door, there'll commonly be like, it looks like a rope seal all the way around it. That's asbestos rope, okay? There will still be a heap of that stuff laying around in junkyards, back sheds, even old houses. You know, you would be surprised how many houses we go into that are 50, 60, 70 years old and never been renovated. and still pretty much original. It's amazing. I mean, these things might not work. They might, especially the old stoves and some of the old wood heaters and stuff like that, but they're still there and they still pose a risk because it's friable. It's considered friable. So that's that kind of thing. If you sort of flick it and start playing with it, you're going to release fibers. It's highly unstable. Let's say, so one of the most chilling things that you can still see today is back in the early days of Hollywood, they used to use asbestos, pure asbestos, for fake snow. Now, when it falls, it's close enough to the real thing. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Wizard of Oz. I'm pretty sure most people have, or Miracle on 42nd Street. The snow used in those movies was asbestos, pure asbestos. So the scene where they go to sleep in the field of flowers in The Wizard of Oz, and they're woken up by snow, that was pure asbestos that they just dropped onto the actors and actresses. Obviously that's banned now. Fire blankets were another common thing, household item. Obviously because it was asbestos that could be woven into a fibre and used as a blanket for fire blanket. But just moving that blanket around, touching it and throwing it on a fire can create all sorts of fibres to be released. So there's still a lot of those around in like a lot of old buildings. I'm pretty sure people are just not aware of them. I mean, if you've never used the fire blanket, it's probably been sitting there for 50, 60, 70 years. It's always worth getting these things tested and disposed of safely. Look, some of the other places that asbestos has found its way into recently with imports is crayons, children's crayons. I don't know why some manufacturers overseas decided that it was a good idea to put asbestos into children's crayons. So if you're overseas on holidays, traveling once the world gets back to normal, just be aware of those kind of things, because there's a lot of countries that don't have bans on asbestos, and for some reason they think it's okay to put asbestos products in children's toys. And while we're on the subject of children, I think there's been a lot of talk recently and some pretty big cases over in the States. I'm not saying it's happening in Australia, but with talcum powder. Talc is obviously mined out of the ground, and where it's mined, they commonly run into asbestos. And there's been enough asbestos in the talc powder that they've tested to find asbestos. And there's been a massive case with a huge global company in America. They've been ordered to pay billions and billions and billions of dollars in compensation. So just be wary of these products. Maybe you can find an alternative because unfortunately the manufacturing process is proving to be failed, and there could be something's getting through. And the companies have been punished for it, and I can't really comment too much on it, but I'm sure if you have a look on Google, you'll find all about it and understand that maybe there's a time to switch if you feel uncomfortable. So that's it for me. There's the 13 unluckiest places you'll find asbestos. I hope they've helped you be more aware of asbestos. And if you like this video, there's plenty more over on our YouTube channel. That's it for me for today. Jason from Coastal Asbestos.